I'm Janet, and I'm the first.
I'm the unlucky second. I'm Jim.
I am Mary, and I am third born. I'm Marie, the other twin. I'm the fourth born.
I'm Kathy. I'm number 6, and I'm the baby.
Yeah, I think we had a very good, I would say I had perfect parents. If I listened to, people nowadays, I would say we were very, very lucky. They were good parents. Would you all agree?
I agree.
Except for one thing. When you opened up the refrigerator, Dad's blood pressure would start rising. Because I think as a kid they had an ice box and he must have left the door open, which you can't do with an ice box. For those of you that don't know what an ice box is, it's a box with ice in it.
Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root.
My dad lived across the street and down a couple of houses from the jail. When this crowd showed up to want to get him out of the jail, well, of course, Dad, he wanted to find out what the heck's going on. And Grandma would not let him off the porch. And he was so mad. That's his memory. He's just so mad at Grandma because she couldn't get off the porch. But the interesting thing was that I never heard about this till I was already out of college. It wasn't anything that was discussed in Marion. Surprised me to find out that it happened.
The 2 people that they lynched, they didn't do it. They did not rape those girls. It was a couple white guys that did it.
Could I bring up your mother?
I know there's those two didn't always see eye to eye.
Right. And I think what I remember is I don't think your mom helped as much as my mom expected her to do.
Growing up.
When growing up.
But it's an interesting story because then Mom will say, "Oh, by the time they're all gone, I had to take care of the whole house myself, and I just was going in, and the house was a disaster."
I know he landed D-Day plus 14, Omaha Beach, I guess. He was in the Battle of the Bulge, and he built the floating bridges over rivers for the tanks and the trucks and the officers' jeeps, of course. It was the engineering group. He was under Patton, 3rd Army. Somebody that built bridges across these rivers in Europe. I never knew him get his knees wet in a lake. And I think, I always felt he must have just fallen off one of those bridges and was almost drowned or something. I don't know, but he was like terrified of water. And went and saw just about every country in Europe. Mom, she was back home as a nurse. She was a 2nd lieutenant. Dad was a private 1st class, so she could order him around.
And Uncle Tom said that after the war, when they got home, he started hanging out at the Burr house.
Right.
And Tom wasn't too sure which one he was hanging out for.
Yeah, he said Uncle Dick was his friend, but he really came over to see Mom, I think.
And it was Mom and...
They went to school together.
Yes, though Dad was a year younger.
He worked at Anaconda, which turned into the Swedish company Ericsson.
He wanted to work, and he didn't want to go to school. His brother went to school, but he decided, no, that wasn't for him. He wanted to work.
She went back to regular hospital. She had worked at the VA, after the war for a while. Then she worked at a regular hospital. And then when she had 6 kids, come on, man, she's not going to work. So
When I started kindergarten, Mom went back to work part-time. I remember her sleeping on the couch while I had to sit right there on the floor and be quiet until it was time to go to school. I was an afternoon kid.
And you probably were totally quiet.
Oh, yeah, right.
When you work a full-time job, you get off work, you go clean the school, and then come home to six screaming kids. No, I think he had a short fuse by then.
But it changed when
Yeah.
Anaconda went on strike. There was a night and day difference.
Yeah.
He was much more relaxed.
Go into that more, because he wasn't working or because better something?
He was working at the school. Since he wasn't working at Anaconda, he got a full-time job at the school, cleaning, being a janitor. And he just seemed to be more relaxed and easier going.
The kids at the school loved Dad. They just loved him. So did the teachers. They said their rooms were always clean.
Having your dad as a janitor there, even, the nuns, when somebody threw up or did anything, they always looked at me. Because I knew where everything was. When Kathy went to school,
When I started kindergarten, Mom went back to work part-time. I remember her sleeping on the couch while I had to sit right there on the floor and be quiet until it was time to go to school. I was an afternoon kid.
And you probably were totally quiet.
Oh, yeah, right.
We had such respect for Mom and Dad. We didn't want to do anything, at least me, to hurt them. The last thing I ever wanted to see was Mom upset.
How does a parent foster that? Because she's so good to you, or what do you think?
I don't. She was always an on-charge kind of person anyway. The type of job she had. She was always, in charge and calm, very calm. She let Dad think he was in charge, but honestly, it was Mom. Because Mom never let him think that she was in charge. I mean, they were so much in love with each other. That's the only thing I can
And they
really
backed
say.
each other up.
Yeah, and they were very private. If they had a
very
discussion,
private.
it was in their bedroom while we didn't see it. Yeah, we were very Catholic. Catholic school, the whole 9 yards. I don't think anybody gave that
I
a
did
thought.
for a while.
You did?
That surprises me.
Hey, I was a good kid.
I think all Catholic kids think about it, especially when you're 7th, 8th grade. And then teenage years happen, and it doesn't seem so exciting after that.
Right.
But we all had to have something beyond high school.
Oh, yes,
They
they
expect
insisted
some kind of
some type of
education.
education, and all of us did, and I think all of us brought that to our own children. And hopefully it goes down to the grandchild. I worked for a root beer stand in Sutter, Dog and Suds, and what's that place near Grandma Kelleys?
Myers?
Myers. Well, my girlfriend and I would go there for hot fudge sundaes every once in a while. Oh, they look good.
My boyfriend worked at Myers, and we used to go to the drive-in theater too. And it was a lot of fun.
My friends and I, going to the drive-in, most of us hid in the trunk of the car so we wouldn't have to pay.
Custer's was an interesting place. It was a descendant of Colonel Custer owned the place. But I was there 4 years.
Maureen and I worked there. Yeah, because it was a cool place to work. But it was a big,
They had
Big
like 90
restaurant.
stations you
Yeah,
could call
it
in
was
orders,
big.
so it was a big place.
And I remember Jim bringing home food every Saturday night, wasn't it?
Fish.
Yeah, fish, whatever
Oh, yeah,
they
Dad
didn't get
liked
rid
the
of,
fish.
we got some snacks, let's say.
Janet,
I would say so. We
Yes.
had a lot of kids in the neighborhood. We played a lot. And
Yeah,
we ran the neighborhood because we could play. We played outside.
that's what kids did back then.
Mom was the urgent care nurse for the neighborhood. So when anybody had skinned a knee or did anything, they'd come to our house.
I remember your family coming over.
Yeah.
And if you ask Mary nicely, you might get that chocolate syrup recipe.
I meant to look for it.
You all just came over and we had popcorn and ice cream and sometimes cake or pie. And what kid wouldn't like that?
Sometimes the neighborhood kids too. My friends always wanted to come Sunday night to our house.
Do you remember the trip to Gun Lake?
Especially when
remember about
the Dick Burrs came.
Yes.
And just all of us were there. I think you all were there, and I guess the Freeze families, and then Uncle Joe McAfee showed up one evening, and it was just a great time.
We would cook outside.
Yeah.
I just remember Joe there.
You remember Joe?
Oh, he was just like this, and he would make
Joe.
funny faces, and he was funny.
That's so great to have that. Your dad was very good and very forward thinking about taking old.
You know why he took those movies or pictures? He didn't want to go in that water.
Well, you got to be fair. He was a fair-skinned redhead.
Was
Yes.
that too? Yeah, when we went to Washington D.C., my brother and I, Tom, decided let's go, for a walk, and there it was. There was a bookstore. It was for adults. It's an adult bookstore. I mean, I was 14. Tom would have been about 11. We thought, hey, let's go get some books. None of those kiddie books. These would be adult books. Little did we know. We got escorted out.
I don't remember that. I do.
Okay.
What year was that, by the way?
About 64, 65.
I remember about that trip. We were in the FBI. That's when they gave tours of the FBI. Now, there's this officer. He was cute. So I left the group and I went and followed him.
How old were you?
I was 9. And needless to say, of course, the group couldn't find me any place, but this guy finally figured out I was following him. And he took me back to the group, and Mom never let go of my hand again on any trips.
We were angels, right?
Speaks the person who got in the most trouble.
Because of what? Because of your.
I was just strong-willed. I wanted to do what I wanted to do.
You two were, of course, like it or not like it, were tied together like glue. But does that mean Mary, you were the dominant of the two of you?
I would say Mary is definitely the dominant.
And what does that mean?
I don't know. I kind of feel that we had two different personalities. I always thought she was smarter than me, but I was more artistic than her. So I feel like Mom and Dad got the best of both worlds. How's that?
Wow.
Not that I can be an artist, but I was a hairdresser for 50 years, and you can.
And
There's
if
ours.
you turn off the mic, I'll talk to you about my college years.
I will tell something else about those two. They were friends one minute, and they were fighting the next.
That's
And
probably
then they would end up giggling. So we just stayed out of it.
But Janet, as the oldest, were you, I hear stories all the time about the oldest. They're like, Mom and Dad, all right, we're going out. Janet, watch over everybody. I mean, was that your job at any point?
We were too close in age. I'm 11 months older than Jim. He's 11 months older than the twins.
So you never felt the seniorship?
I did, because I was the oldest. That being the oldest, I felt I was the boss
Not
at
me.
times. Yeah, and then I sat on him and and started tickling, and that was it. But until they got to their teenage years and they got bigger than me.
When you got into the years where you need to have somebody to talk or ask questions or, truth telling, did you go to your parents or what?
That's what friends were for.
Yeah, that's what I had her for.
No.
No, I don't think we did because Mom and Dad, they let us raise our kids ourselves. They never interfered with, at least with me. Did they interfere? They didn't interfere at all.
They met Ian out of the blue because I went over to Europe, met him, and he came over. Oh, I went over for Christmas. Then he came over that spring, and they accepted him. And he just thinks the world of this family.
Had he grown up with that, or just the fact that they accepted him because he was from another country, or how would you define
They
that?
accepted him because I wanted to marry him.
They always accepted all of my girlfriends, sorry.
And I even got to go on some of his dates. Do you remember that, Jim? I don't know if Mom didn't trust them, but I had fun sitting in the back and watching them.
I remember real clearly when Jessica got married, and we were all at my house and we were cooking, and all of a sudden we're looking at each other. I don't know if you remember that, Janet. We said, there is something wrong with Mom.
The sign of Alzheimer's for me was just looking at my mom's checkbook. You
Oh,
knew
yeah, her
exactly
writing
when
changed.
she reached a certain point where she couldn't do checks anymore. And the
Was that
date,
hard to watch?
the dates are all there and everything.
And I remember Dad saying, girls, he always said, girls, what are you going to do about Mom?
Yeah.
Okay, Dad. So that's when we took her to Fort Wayne and had her tested. And for Dad, Mom always took care of Dad. And when Mom couldn't take care of Dad anymore, that didn't make him happy. He knew something was wrong.
You remember when Dad fell in the bathroom and couldn't get up and spent the night on the floor?
No.
And that's when they decided to go into assisted living. I had to sit down
I
with
guess
Dad.
I didn't remember him falling. Yeah, Mom couldn't cook anymore.
The hard thing was making the decisions for them. Are we doing the right thing? How much do we do? Without overstepping. Yeah, it was very tough.
And remember, the ones that gave the most care from that point on were sitting right over here.
Yeah. Well, as you know, Dad was diabetic, but Mom kept him in, But eventually, his heart got weak and his kidneys. They would always say to me, his kidney needs to be wet and his heart needs to be dry. And I know that before, when he got out of the hospital, the nurse told him, the doctor said, his heart wasn't real strong. And he did die 17 days later
At the nursing home.
They said he died of kidney failure.
Yes.
But he was going to the bathroom when he fell in the nursing home.
Well, they
So-
found her.
There's a story behind this. Mary will tell
No, what?
They're all both on the floor.
Yeah, when Marie, the nice sister that I have here, she put me top, who they call if something would happen. So they called me, woke me up at 3 a.m, and they said, your dad's gone. And I said, well, where did he go? That is God's truth. And I had a big trip planned the next day, which didn't happen, but that was okay. And so we got to the nursing home, and they found Mom and Dad both on the floor.
Next to each other.
But by the time I got there, they had Dad in the bed, all nice tucked in, and Mom in another room. And I don't think she knew what was going on.
We didn't know if he got out of bed and fell and Mom tried to help him, or if she got out of bed and fell and Dad tried to help her, but they were right there together. And Mom stayed there. Of course, they put her in a wheelchair when they found him. It's the most romantic thing I've ever heard.
The nurse told me that when they went in and found Mom and Dad on the floor, she said, she looked right up at the nurse and said, "My husband is gone." And she never mentioned Dad again, really.
Mom and Dad had everything prepared. So it was.
They debated on where they were going to be buried, in the Kelly plot or the new plot. Mom wasn't sure about being in the old plot because were they going to mow the lawn and take care of it?
Well, they don't.
And so they ended up in the Kelly plot.
For me, if I would be driving down the road, I would think of Mom and Dad, and it would bring tears to my eyes. Yeah, it took a long time. It did.
And I also remember always going to the nursing home a couple times a week. Somebody was there almost every day. And I thought, when they passed away, I thought, well, that time is gone. What do I do now? Because it was quite a long time that we did that.
Yeah.
If you think, there was 4 years, 3 years difference in when they died.
But she did what happened toward the end, like any Alzheimer's person, she wouldn't eat. And then we had her in physical therapy, and when I came in and I saw how hard she struggled, I said that was the end of that. You know, but she never once ever gave any trouble at the nursing home. Complain.
The doctor told us that her personality came forth. People who are nasty and mean, well, that's their personality. And Mom didn't have a mean bone in her body.
Nope.
My special time as a kid was going over to Grandma's house. And Jean and Irene were there, and on occasion Annie was there, and your mother before she was married. And we'd be in the front bedroom on the house on McClure. And we did that I don't know how many times, and it was so much fun.
Well, I remember that house
The
perfectly.
thing I remember most of all, thank you, Grandpa, was it was dark and dreary where the picture of the lions were, and I was so petrified of those lions. And he would sit me on his lap and tell me it's a mommy and a daddy, and they love each other. But I'm still scared of that picture.
I think for most of us, our high points were when our cousins showed up, and a lot of times, spent the night, or we would go to Newcastle or what have you. That was always so special, just to have cousins, and lots of them.